It was a dark, dark time. It was back in quarantine. The year, I don't remember what year it was, but I was 14 at the time and I was locked away. 14, 15 at this time. I was locked away in my own house. And I could see none of my friends for a long time, and I was beginning to miss people. I am naturally extroverted. I want to see my friends, right? I'm a teenager. I miss everyone. I was told that we would get 2 weeks off from school, and that would be it. That we would come back and we'd get back to our normal process of learning, and then we'd be back in the midst of it, and things would be okay. That's what we were told. That's what everyone told us, and I believed because I was a naive 14-year-old. Anyway, I was home for months at a time with no human interaction apart from my immediate family members. And if any of you have been in this situation, you understand exactly how painstaking it can be, how difficult it can be to see the same faces like 24/7 every single day, 7 days a week. That was my life at this point. And it was at this point that I dove into the realm of social media. I had a phone at this point, and I would find solace in social media. I would dive in completely. I began to see these apps, these tools, these platforms as my companions, as my friends, as my own little world where I could escape and live again. That's what I thought. I thought this was the opportunity to do whatever I want. I mean, I used to complain about having schoolwork all the time, and I used to long for summer, being away from everything, and this was my chance to be away from everything. So I started to look on the bright side, right? Maybe this is not so bad. Maybe I could just exist for as long as this takes and just be on my own and relax and have some fun, play some games, watch some movies, do whatever the hell I wanted to do. That's what I thought at this point, and for a while I enjoyed it. But a few months into quarantine, a few months into lockdown, I should say, we started school again, but this time it was online. So I was happy at this point. It was novel. I didn't do it before, so I was like, okay, online school, how bad can it be? If anything, it's going to be way easier. Let's go. That's what I was thinking, right? So I was excited for this, except easy as it was, I did terrible that year academically. Terrible comparatively, right? I did not focus at all on my schoolwork, right? I was lost in social media, and I remember feeling my conscience growing, and it was almost as if it was calling out to me. It was saying, Corban, there's something wrong, do something. There is something wrong, do something. I remember that feeling, right? I'd feel anxious, my throat would burn, because I know there was a task at hand that I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do these things. I was supposed to be focusing in school, getting good grades, and yet here I was scrolling on this app, just scrolling hours a day, man, hours a day. And it got so bad to the point my throat was tense like all the time, and I knew something was wrong. I had hints as to what was wrong, but I didn't want to give it up. Because I'm 15 at this point. I'm like, dude, this is so much fun. I don't have any responsibilities. My parents are out working. Who's here? I mean, it's just me and I'm having fun. I'm chilling. Like, this is the one time in my life where I get to escape and no one's over my back telling me, oh, you got to put away your phone because you're in class. No one's telling me what I have to do. I get to exist in my own little world. I get to escape and have the fun I want to have. That's what I was thinking, right? So I embraced this. I embraced this fully, and I dove into it. But that voice grew louder and louder. It was like, Corban, something is wrong. Corban, something is wrong. There's something missing. And indeed, there was something missing. Of course, there was something missing. It is not natural for anyone to be spending 8 hours a day scrolling on a squared rock, as the ancients would call things we call phones. That's not natural. That's not normal. Of course, there was something wrong. And as you can expect, immediately my mental health deteriorated, right? It made the problems I was trying to escape from worse in the long run. Much worse. Because not only am I in solitude, I'm now in solitude, stuck with this app that gives information to my brain saying, oh, look at all these other people out here living wonderful lives while you're stuck in your little hole for almost a year and a half. So you can imagine what effect that has on a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, right? That can't be normal. That can't be natural. There's no positive to that, but that was my life, and that's how I lived. And so after quarantine, and we assimilated, and we got back into the schools, and we got back to normal life, I still had my phone, and best believe it was an addiction. The apps that I'd go on, like TikTok and YouTube, and I'd scroll for hours. At this point, it was an addiction, no doubt about it. Right? It's an addiction. So once I got back into regular life, that addiction didn't just disappear. Of course not. Of course not. It was there, and now I had to deal with it. And I have been dealing with this ever since, much like you, much like everyone else. We've been dealing with this ever since. And I remember my mental health tanked completely. I felt like I had no friends. I felt like I was alone all the time. I felt like life wasn't worth it. I started to have the deepest, darkest thoughts at this point in my life, because I was overstimulated. You're overstimulated. If you see hours and hours and hours of someone else's life while you're literally in a room, sitting down attentively, looking at a screen for 8 hours, just staring, just looking. Obviously, that's not good for you. And so it took a toll on me. It took a toll, definitely. I feel like I was more lonely than I've ever been in my entire life. I felt more sad than I had ever felt in my entire life. I discovered new musicians that played extremely sad music, and that's all I'd listen to. Of course, it's going to have an effect on you. Whatever you practice again and again and again and again and again, eventually leaves a mark on you. And so that's what these apps did. But the funny thing about social media is that it does not leave a distinct mark, because it's so vague, because you see so much information. And so what's left is a vacuum of nothingness, a vacuum. And so after I'd spent hours and hours and hours and hours of my day on these apps, at the end of the days, I'd be left with nothing. I had learned nothing. I had experienced nothing. And all the things I remember, because this is how the human brain works, were the negative things. All the things I could hold on to were the negative things. All the things that made a real impression were the negative things. So you can imagine that was not good for me or the people around me. I began to become annoyed with the people around me because they were not as stimulating as this thing in my head. I began to find less pleasure in almost everything that was good for me, because it did not offer as much stimulation as this thing that was in my hand. And so of course you get depressed with that worldview. Your neurochemistry was hacked. My neurochemistry was hacked. Social media almost ruined my life at this point. But I made a decision. I think about a year and a half into quarantine, I told myself, or a year and a half into lockdown, as they called it, I told myself that I will give up TikTok. I told myself that, and I deleted TikTok, and I didn't have it for years since. I deleted it completely, and I just focused on what I needed to focus on. And I kid you not, my life improved drastically. I remember feeling gradually an appreciation for the little things again. Going on walks, going on runs, playing soccer in my backyard, juggling to like 1,000. Those things began to bring me joy once more. And I remembered that this was what life was before I got into that stuff. Little things like taking a walk in the sun and the summer nights. Those things began to give me joy again. I began to feel fulfilled with the little things again. I began to experience with fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh hands, what it was like to live this life and to experience the beauty therein. And I appreciated it. To a large extent, I felt refreshed. My grades were getting better. I felt better about myself. My self-esteem went up. I had more confidence when I met people. Things were great. Things were amazing. And that period in my life has taught me a significant lesson. And the reason you're watching this video is because you want to know what the lesson is. So I'll tell you what the lesson is. The lesson is, these things are tools, right? And I'm not going to say anything you don't already know intuitively, because a lot of these things we only need reminders, right? The reason why we watch videos or read philosophical books is because we need reminders or a deeper articulation, a better articulation for ideas we already know in our heads. So I'm going to tell you what the lesson is. The lesson is, these things that we have access to, we're not supposed to dive into every single thing. Some things are simply tools. Some things are there for us to use, not for them to use us. And at this point in my life, the story I just told, social media was using me for my attention. I wasn't using social media. I wasn't getting anything from it. The algorithm controlled my life. Now, and since that point, I control my algorithm. I make sure I have at least a greater amount of control over what I see, over what I take in, over what I give my attention to. That's what you should take away from this video. These things are here to serve you, not vice versa. If you sit for 8 hours of your life in front of a screen and you pay attention to pixels, then you are being used. And these devices, these apps, these applications, these forums, these mediums, they are there for us to use them. Use them accordingly, right? You have your life to live, and these things are tools. Focus on your life. Don't focus on the tools and neglect your life. Focus on your life and use the tools. You get me? That's the lesson. That's what I have to say in this video. Social media almost ruined my life, but you can step away from these things. Think about how unnatural it is to live the way you are living now, and think about a better way to live. What if you weren't hooked to your phone? What if you didn't have to touch your phone every time you got an anxiety-inducing situation? What if you didn't get the impulse to look at the weather app when you saw a cute girl walk past? What if the impulse instead was to go talk to this girl, however awkward it may be? We only have one life after all, right? We only go around this thing once. What is there to lose? What do you lose by living your life? What do you lose by paying attention to the world you inhabit? What do you lose by using tools instead of having tools use you? Come on. Be for real right now. So that's what I wanted to come on here and talk about, how social media almost ruined my life and how I stopped that from happening and taking full effect, because the power is in your hands. Remember, the buck stops with you. The buck stops with you. And anything you want to achieve, anything you want to accomplish, you have to make the decision to do that. The buck stops with you. Now, go make we got the band playing in the background. Anyway, go make the decisions you know are necessary, and don't allow social media to ruin your life. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. By the way, why would you not subscribe? Just like give me a reason why you wouldn't subscribe. Because if there isn't a reason, then come on. Anyways, seek on. I will see you next time. Peace.